week on Africa Weekly. We travel to Mozambique, where schools are increasingly teaching in the local Changana dialect, in addition to the country's official language, Portuguese. And we take you to Benin, where the niche sport of fencing has taken a foothold, with the National Federation setting its sights on Olympic qualification. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. Zimbabwe's MDC opposition party vowed to overturn President Emmerson Mnangagwa's narrow election victory in court, alleging that he won the historic vote via mammoth theft and fraud.
We have what we require for the purposes of mounting not just a credible and sustainable challenge, but a challenge that is going to yield the entire vacation of the process.
Mnangagwa, formerly a close ally of Mugabe, won 50.8% in last week's vote, just scraping in above the 50% runoff threshold. The country's first election since Robert Mugabe's ousting has been marred by rigging allegations, with the army opening fire on opposition demonstrators, killing 6 people, and accusations of a security crackdown on opposition supporters. Ending months of speculation, Congolese government spokesman Lambert Mende announced on Wednesday that the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Joseph Kabila, had chosen former Interior Minister Emmanuel Ramazani Shadary to be his successor in upcoming elections. The announcement came just hours before the deadline for lodging applications for the December 23rd election, a vote that analysts say is crucial for the country's future. Thousands gathered in Bamako on Wednesday at the Palace of Culture at the request of Soumaïla Cissé and other presidential candidates to condemn alleged fraud in the country's July 29th presidential poll. Incumbent President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta won 41.42% of votes in the first stage of the poll, easily ahead of opposition leader Soumaïla Cissé, in second place with 17.8%. But mounting accusations of fraud and ballot box stuffing marred the days following the poll, with EU observers calling for more transparency and access during Sunday's runoff.
We will not accept the dictatorship of fraud in our country. We want a country that moves forward. All those who are here are committed to this. They're all here.
Voting could not be held in 871 polling stations in the first round due to the outbreaks of violence. The incidents affected nearly 250,000 people, mostly in the centre and northern Timbuktu region. Former Ivory Coast First Lady Simone Gbagbo was released on Wednesday after serving a 20-year jail term over political violence that claimed several thousand lives in 2010 to 2011. After 7 years of detention, Gbagbo, the wife of former President Laurent Gbagbo, was granted amnesty by President Alassane Ouattara. Laurent Gbagbo has been in detention at the International Criminal Court at The Hague for 7 years and on trial since 2016 for alleged crimes against humanity. Around 3,000 people died in post-election violence in the country's commercial capital, Abidjan, when the former leader refused to accept defeat to Ouattara, his bitter rival, in a presidential ballot in November 2010. The legacy of the conflict is still felt deeply today, with Ouattara facing pressure to foster reconciliation. A solemn ceremony in the Kenyan capital on Tuesday marked the 20th anniversary of the Al-Qaeda bomb attack on the US Embassy. Families of the victims and officials gathered at a memorial park in the center of Nairobi, created on the site of the targeted embassy. The diplomatic mission was devastated by a huge explosion on the morning of August 7, 1998, followed minutes later by another massive blast which wrecked the US Embassy in Tanzania. A total of 224 people were killed in the attacks and around 5,000 injured, mostly African citizens. The twin attacks introduced the world to Al-Qaeda's leader Osama bin Laden 3 years before the September 11 attacks in New York would make him a household name. Nigerian Senate President Bukola Saraki called for a probe into Tuesday's parliament takeover by security services when hooded armed men from the police and Department of State Service blocked access to the two chambers, the Senate and House of Representatives, preventing lawmakers from entering. The Nigerian presidency denied authorizing the move, which comes amid a surge of tension between President Muhammadu Buhari and political rivals. The presidential race is heating up in Nigeria 6 months ahead of February polls, with Buhari coming under criticism for his handling of security issues and the economy in Africa's most populous country.
In Manhica, a small rural town in the south of Mozambique, children are no longer learning their lessons in Portuguese, the country's official language. Instead, their teacher is speaking to them in Changana, a local dialect. In most cases, when children start school in Mozambique, they are taught in Portuguese, despite 90% only speaking Changana at home.
All the kids here know how to speak Changana. Only a few of them don't, those who come from the town. But most of them have no difficulty at all expressing themselves in Changana.
Helena's students are taught in Changana until they are 10, before transitioning to Portuguese. This not only helps the children's early education, but also the bond between teachers and students. And the results are positive. Out of the 7 classes in the school, the bilingual class has the highest success rate in the first term.
With bilingual education, the kids are more active because they master the language. They're not afraid to talk to the teacher. They express themselves better in a language they know well, the local language.
In rural areas of Mozambique, teachers able to teach in Changana are rare, a remnant of a time when the dialect was repressed under Portuguese colonial rule. But slowly, its revival is beginning to spread. Today, in over 100 schools, more than 5,000 children are being taught in Changana across the Maputo province.
On the roof of a stadium in Benin's capital, Cotonou, these young fencers hone their skills with épée, foil and saber. While the sport is not widely practiced in the country, the Fencing Federation hopes to attract new enthusiasts.
It's a sport that is not yet really recognized in Benin. Even in Africa in general, it is not yet recognized. But we are trying to spread the news about this sport in Benin, first in Cotonou and in the far north of the country.
To encourage these aspiring sportsmen and women, 5-time Olympic medalist and French sports minister Laura Flessel has come to pass on some tips.
In fencing, there's a balance of victory and loss. You must accept being the loser one day to come out on top the next. That's what makes the sport so rich. So when I stopped at 40, I had the impression that I was learning. So what I can offer you today is to enter this school of humility, because it's a very beautiful sport.
These young fencers hope to follow in the champion's footsteps.
When I heard about it in Benin, I joined the club and started fencing. For me, my dream is to become world champion. African champion first, then world champion.
I tried it and I saw that it was a really exciting discipline and that with fencing I could really shoot for the stars.
The Benin Fencing Federation has its eyes set on qualification for the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. To get there, these athletes will need to prove their mettle by performing well in upcoming international level competitions.
And US NBA basketball players played in Pretoria's Sun area for a friendly in support of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Team World won against Team Africa, and LA Clippers' Danilo Gallinari was named NBA Africa Game 2018 Most Valuable Player.
Well, it was a great game, first of all. I thought it was a great show. Team Africa played very well. We played well too. And they could have won, we could have won. It was the last possession thing, game. So, but I'm glad that at the end of the day, our goal is to give a show to the fans.
That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.